Yeah,
You do, Patrick?
got that. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Um, you know what? I had a class this past semester. One of them was on upper campus, the other class was on lower campus, and it was like 10, 15 minutes in between. So I listen every single well Tuesday and Thursday I was going up and down. So yeah. But yeah, looks like we're starting to fill up. So we'll get started in a minute or two here. But yeah, again, want to thank everyone for joining. We have an amazing panel, very first event for the coalition. So no, this is super exciting. I'm really glad we get to take advantage of the kind of being online opportunity. But it's a lot of fun. So yeah, with that said, it's 5:30 now. So we'll get started. So I'll kind of get started here. So again, my name is Patrick Lynch. I am the vice president for Cal State Long Beach, and like I said, we have got together, got a good 6 or 7 chapters together over the summer. A lot of hard work from them. So I want to give a quick shout out to everyone that's been in our coalition meetings. A lot of them long meetings, but able to create something like this. So this is our very first PRSSA SoCal coalition meeting, and our topic is in-house versus agency. So brief introduction. We have 4 amazing panelists today. So we have Autumn from Golin, we have Francisco from Ketchum, we have Melissa from Windsor, and then we have Nathan from Live Nation. So we'll start off with Autumn. She'll give you a brief introduction about herself, and yeah.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick for everyone. Just a little intro slide. Okay. All right. How's that working?
Perfect.
Awesome. So I won't go too in depth. This is a little overview, personal and professional. I was the class of 2018 at Cal State Long Beach, and I am no stranger to PRSSA work and just how much work goes into it because I was the communications director for one semester and then the vice president for the next semester, which is really 4 semesters because I'm sure Patrick will tell you guys it's a year-round job. And a nice accolade, I was awarded the most outstanding PR major the year that I graduated. And my first job was really my paid media job at an agency called Hearts and Science, which is an umbrella, or it's under the umbrella corp of Omnicom, which Francisco knows. And, but it felt like an in-house experience because we solely worked on Warner Brothers. So I did all the paid media for every platform you can think of, Google, all social media channels, etc. And that was a great foundation of knowledge, but not what I wanted to do long-term because it's a lot of data and Excel sheets. And then through a PRSSA made connection, I was actually hired at Golin, which is where Francisco used to work also. A lot of overlap. And then now I work mainly on the health, government, and mission-driven accounts. But I do dabble in a lot of the big, sexy clients like Nintendo, most recently the LA 2028 Olympics, and so on. And just some personal background, I have extensive history in the food and beverage industry, and I worked in customer service for 7 years. Coffee is my first passion, and I keep in touch with that via blog and Instagram, and that's kind of part of my personal brand. And I kind of moved all over a little bit, but technically born and raised San Diego, and I came back here about 5.5 years ago. That's me.
Perfect. All right. So Francisco, we'll give it off to you.
I am back on. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So a little bit, can everybody see that? All good?
Yes.
Awesome. So a little bit about myself. I'm going to tell you guys basically my whole life story in 5 minutes. So because I feel like where I'm from kind of informs of where I ended up today. So I grew up in a teeny tiny town in Central California called Avenel. It is now the pistachio capital of the world. So next time you open a bag of wonderful pistachios, that is where you got it from. So I was born and raised there. Of course, had no idea what PR was growing up in this like super small farming town that only had farming and a prison. So growing up, I actually wanted to be a doctor. And as soon as I got into college, of course, graduated high school, started taking, was going the pre-med route and quickly realized that I did not want to be a doctor. And immediately made kind of like a switch over to like what I thought I wanted to do, which at the time was what I saw on TV, which was PR. So my first intro to PR was kind of like what I saw on TV. It was watching The Hills or The Spin Crowd. You guys are all probably way too young to even know what those shows are. But yeah, that's where I got my first intro into PR. So that's what I kind of like decided on. I went to a community college at first and then was there for 2 years, eventually transferred and made my way to CCLB, where I started, of course, getting into more of the different PR courses and really learning kind of like what PR was. So throughout my time at CCLB, I was vice president of PRSSA for a couple of years. So very familiar with everything that all the things that you guys are doing right now. It's a lot of work, but it'll pay off in the long run. I will say that. But while I was at school, I did a few different internships. I interned at a small boutique agency that works kind of like on celebrity gifting. So I supported the Gift Lounge Suite at the American Music Awards back in like 2012 and 2011 and 2012. And then eventually I made my way over to PMKBNC as a brand marketing intern. It's now no longer PMKBNC, it's like RNC something. It's the Rogers and Cow and PMK merger. So they're a whole new agency now. Where I kind of like started dabbling into the world of entertainment because when I first started doing PR, I wanted to be a publicist and then took that internship at that agency, met with some of the publicists there, and then also quickly realized that I didn't want to be a publicist because I didn't want to be a paid best friend. So I did a whole kind of like big 360 shift and went from entertainment PR to healthcare. And I actually interned for a year at Molina Healthcare. And I would say that's where I really got kind of like my first big feel for PR and kind of like really fell in love with the industry and the work. I worked with a super phenomenal team. If I think they still have their internship program available. So if it's ever open, I highly recommend that you guys apply to it. The team there is awesome. I know a few people are still there that I worked with, so highly encourage you checking that out if you can. So I was there for about a year up until I graduated, and as soon as I graduated, I actually took on a fellowship at Fleich & Hillard. It's their Diversity Fellowship, so again, another opportunity that all of you can apply for, and I highly recommend. I was there for about 6 months and did a little bit of everything, anything from like account work to media relations. It supported a variety of accounts from like the Singapore Tourism Board, the LA Special Olympics at the time, and a few other kind of like food and CPG brands. Eventually, I got hired full-time at Allison & Partners, where I started out as an AC. I was there for a couple of years and again, did very, very general work, anything from account work, influencer, media, you name it, I did it. And while I was there, I mean, I touched a variety of different accounts as well too. Some of the most notable ones I worked on were Pinterest and Fox Home Entertainment. So Pinterest, it was kind of like working with them to share different consumer trends that you would find on the site. And then Fox Home Entertainment was basically DVD marketing. So it was a very interesting, fun time. After Allison & Partners, as Ada mentioned, I made my way to Golin. I actually started on the Nintendo team, and that's when I first started paving my path kind of like in the media relations world. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Golin, they kind of have like these different sectors that they are run by, which is basically like account management, media, research, and like a creative team. I was on the media team for Nintendo. So I helped them through like the launch of the Nintendo Switch, their first iOS app, Super Mario Run, and several of their different games as well. Got a feel for it, realized that gaming was not an industry I was passionate about. So it made the switch over to the consumer team. And that's where I started diving into kind of like the world of food, and is basically what I do now. So was at Golin, worked on like sweet tarts, Butterfingers, and then like Adobe and some other consumer tech work. And eventually I made my way to Ketchum, where I'm at now as a managing media specialist. So essentially my role day to day is media. All I do is that day in and day out. Whether it's developing media strategies for my client programs or if it's one-off pitches, I'm pretty much involved in that world all the time. The primary clients that I work with now are Frito-Lay. So I work on Cheetos, Doritos, Tostitos, all the Eatos, as we like to say. And again, help them with anything from their big Super Bowl campaigns, consumer activations like our fashion show that we did last year with Cheetos in New York, or our restaurant. And a whole bunch of other stuff. And over the last year, I've kind of like gravitated to a new area of PR, which is the wonderful world of celebrity. So my computer looks like, so there we go. So a lot of my work now day to day is really in the world of kind of like branded partnerships and outreach. So do a ton of different celebrity branded programs. This week alone, for example, I worked with Mario Lopez for a media tour on Monday for Variety Brands, which is a General Mills program. But as you can tell, I've worked with onslaught of celebs, Tamara Mowry, BB Rexa, Ashanti, Derek Huff. So my role is celebrity and food, as I like to tell people, and a little bit of consumer tech. My other big client is a small tech company known by Google. I work on all of their consumer tech products, so all the smart home stuff, so Nest Mini, Google Hub Max, and we're actually prepping for our big event next Wednesday, where we'll be unveiling information about our newest smart speakers, phones, and streaming devices. So yeah, that is me in 5 minutes or less.
Perfect. Thank you. So we had those two are our two agencies. Thank you so much, Autumn and Francisco. So now our two in-house. So we'll start out with Melissa.
Let me share my screen.
Perfect.
All right, one sec. Okay. So, hi, excited to be here. And I come from the PRSSA Long Beach chapter. So I went to Cal State Long Beach for 3.5 years, August 2011, finished up in December 2014. And unlike a lot of you, I actually was not a PR, comms, or marketing major. My major is actually international studies, and but I always knew I was good at writing and wanted to do something with it. So I ended up adding on a minor in journalism with an emphasis in PR. To add a little more nuance to that, I actually thought I was going to be like a reporter or journalist up until my last 2 semesters at Long Beach. So I really only took 1 or 2 PR classes and learned a lot on the fly. So don't follow my footsteps, you know, but that's me. So let me see. So I've worked in a lot of industries since I've graduated: tech, entertainment, real estate, public sector, but I've been in fashion for about 1.5 years now, fast fashion, e-com over at Windsor Fashions. And I'm on the social media team. So a lot of fun stuff, as you can see on the PowerPoint slide that I put together. A lot of what I do is content creation. So a lot of writing, there's some visual stuff as well. But I mean, my team handles influencers. We also do a lot of strategy, a lot of analytics and metrics, especially when it comes to sales, in terms of what we sell online, as we are a global brand, even though we only have stores in the US. So a very busy, busy job, but very fun as well. And I also do a lot of community management in my role. So community management, for those who don't know, is essentially a lot of customer service for sure online, but it's also relationship building and just engaging with people who engage with you on social media. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Then last but not least, we have Nathan.
Hey everybody, I'm gonna just share my screen really quick. Cool, can you see my screen?
Yes, we do. Perfect.
Okay, cool. My name is Nathan, and I graduated from Cal State Long Beach in December of 2017. I was a journalism major with the emphasis in public relations, with a minor in film. And I know now Cal State Long Beach has the specific public relations major, which is really cool. After graduating from college, I was kind of in like, I don't know what I want to do kind of boat. So I just had to do what a lot of kids do, is just network and meet a lot of people. I know like what's out there. I still think like my marketing and PR career is still relatively young, but it's never too late to start. And so after almost like 8 months to like 9 months of networking and like looking for my first full-time gig in the PR or marketing field, I landed a job at Live Nation. And to keep everything short, I would say what helped me land this job was strictly networking with someone I met, and someone who was like impressed with my skill set, the freelance projects I took on, all the projects I did in college, even homework assignments from public relations courses. I know I saw Professor Newton in the chat, one of the best in the business for sure, at school. So I was able to bring in all these homework assignments and experiences from college to interviews and stuff like that and expand upon them. And I think that really helped me get to Live Nation. And obviously I'm a marketing coordinator and we work in the clubs and theaters department. So we help market for the clubs and theaters in LA, such as like the Wiltern, Hollywood Palladium, all the House of Blues, Anaheim, San Diego, Boston, Myrtle Beach, and venues all across the country pretty much. There's like 60 of them and growing. Mostly what we market to is we market through mostly email marketing and social media marketing. I mean, not social media, text message marketing. So we're definitely very CRM focused, so customer relationship management focused. Let me see if I have another slide. So this is just a small bio I had. And as you can see, we have lots of dogs in the office, which is one of the best parts of work. Yeah, so we specialize in using CRM technology to create emails from scratch and designing proper newsletters, making sure they look appropriate on all devices. And we create audience lists, we segment the audiences. So there's a lot of data to work with. And I'll pull up some examples of some emails we worked on. Let's see. So this is one of the recent campaigns they did. So obviously if you go to a venue, you have like a marquee and then you can market like your event there. So that's some of the stuff we had. That's for Hollywood Palladium, and this is for House of Blues Anaheim. As you can see, they're pretty much identical, except for the colors. And once like you start working more in marketing, you start learning about like dynamic content. So I know I mentioned we have like 60 venues, and that doesn't mean we make 60 emails, because that would take like a really long time. So we make one email, and then whatever software you use, you can dynamically like program it to pull in the right logo and stuff like that. So that's kind of another field in like marketing and PR that a lot of people can also get into. Stuff like data management and stuff like that. But yeah, all our stuff is mostly in-house. It's all employees working for Live Nation. We don't hire like any other people to do emails or social media. That's all us in the office doing all that. And I know there's a lot of PR professionals on the panel right here. So feel free to chime in if there's anything I should expand upon. And I have the comments open too if you have any comments or questions that we can answer as well. And that is a very brief intro of me. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you all for we get to know a little bit about you. So we are going to get more into the nitty gritty now. So Autumn, I'd like to start out with you. So we'll go more into the COVID now, but generally, how does a day-to-day look like for your work?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna start with the old standby, which is there really is no such thing as a typical day, but I definitely want to give you guys something something more than that. So I'll start with I make a to-do list every day at the end of the day. So my day always starts with looking at the to-do list that I made the night before. Quick tip, I highly recommend you plan to utilize something like OneNote or Evernote, because that is my life. That is literally what I'm looking at right now, notes-wise. And that has saved my life so many times. So just a great kind of task manager tool. Next up is definitely email checking. That is 99% of, I could probably safely say, any PR job is email. Probably a couple of meetings where you know, I'm an entry-level employee, so I will definitely be doing all the note taking, and then afterwards disseminating, you know, if there's any action items to move on, etc. Undoubtedly, there will be a client fire at some point in the day, or a quick turn project is the euphemism used in my office, and that sometimes keeps me working very late. Thankfully, I found a lot of entry PR jobs are hourly, so I get overtime. And on busy days, I'll check in with my supervisor beginning of day or end of day, but you know, depends on the type of manager you have. The kind of supervisor I have right now, I love, because I have a lot of authority on all the accounts that I work on. So sometimes we go like 2 weeks without having a check-in. Sometimes if it's super, super busy, we check in multiple times throughout a single day. So that's pretty much a typical day in a nutshell. To expand a little bit on just what I personally do at Golin, I work on some really big event-based clients. So a lot of what I'll do whenever that kind of work is kicked into high gear or in season is vendor outreach, obviously mainly client communications and relaying information, research, collaboration, big part of my day if it's close to showtime. Example, last Christmas I spent weeks and weeks calling the biggest venues in California, getting quotes for an event with former President Barack Obama. That event did not happen, but I did all the on-the-ground event support for all other events that we had that year, created a shot list, so I handle the photographer, and generally just make sure the client's happy and deal with any problems on the fly. Another thing you will undoubtedly do when you enter this industry is press clippings, creating media lists. I also do community management, so that's a big part of my day or week. And on that account, I'm also the lead writer, which means I strategize and write all the blog posts, the social media posts, create editorial calendars, lead brainstorms, and then there will 100% be some finance involved in your role, which I was not thrilled with when I entered the job market, but definitely budget management, creating POs, you know, handling all the finances and such. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, as PR majors and minors and all that, yeah, finance probably isn't our strong suit, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to Francisco. I know you went a little bit into it in your introduction, but you could go a little more into detail with your day-to-day.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I think to kind of like echo Autumn, this isn't a 9 to 5 job. So it's kind of hard to kind of like nail down kind of like what your schedule looks like on a day-to-day basis. But I would say from like a high level perspective, if I were to break it up into kind of like two parts, I would say, as I mentioned, like I'm a media specialist. So like my world is media all day, every day. So unfortunately being kind of like on the West Coast, we're at a bit of a disadvantage because we're, of course, in terms of time zones, we're like really late compared to people in New York and in the Midwest. So the first half of my day, I would say, is really spent focusing on any kind of like media relations programs that I'm working on. So whether it's pitching a journalist for a media tour that I'm working on with celebrity, or if it's an announcement for a new product, or just other random campaign stuff that I'm working on, I would say like the first half of my day is really focused on media. And of course, like getting those updates and communications to them, sharing updates with my internal teams, and things like that. The second half of my day, I would say, is really focused more so on kind of like prepping for what's to come next. So if we're planning for a campaign that's like 3 weeks away, it's helping assist with either the media strategy, how we're going to do that. And of course, like our strategies like are composed of a variety of different things, like whether we want to take things like exclusives, broad outreach, things like that. So there's a lot of behind the scenes discussions when it comes to that. So I assist with that. And then of course, like building media lists, and then supporting any other random stuff that I do across the agency. I do a lot. So I would say if we're breaking it up, it would be like that. But I mean, to kind of like to go into like the nitty gritty of the way that some of the things work, like for example, Monday, I was up at 6:30 a.m. Staffing the Mario Lopez media tour that I was on, and then was working till 8, doing stuff on Google. So again, it's not really a day-to-day job, but breaking it up, like that's kind of like what my role is. Again, if any of you guys are interested in the world of media, and when I say media, I know it like Autumn, I mean, Nathan and like Autumn mentioned like other like media components, like on the paid and social and earned side. I'm specifically saying like earned media. So whenever you see like my clients, for example, in like People or Pop Sugar or other publications like that, that's a result of my team. Like for example, what did we launch most recently that you guys might know of? Pillsbury Toaster Strudel with Mean Girls. That was one of our innovations that we launched for General Mills. That was a pretty big one. There's always something new product being launched for Frito-Lay, some new kind of chip. And then Google, as I mentioned, we're prepping for a really big event next Wednesday for some of our new consumer smart home products. So yeah, world of products is my world.
Toaster Strudels and Mean Girls. Didn't think I'd ever hear those two together, but interesting. I love it. All right, Melissa, could you please go more into detail about your kind of day-to-day?
Yeah, so to echo Autumn, same thing, like no day is truly typical, but honestly, no matter what role you have, just be prepared to expect a lot of emails and a lot of meetings regardless. And meetings are fine, but once you start to level up in your role, you find that the more meetings that you need to have with different people, the less time you have to do your work. So hence, you know, the echo Francisco, not 9 to 5. But usually I like to start and end my day with community management, which I mentioned earlier, just because that's something that can easily fall to the wayside, like answering people who DM you or engaging with them, especially when you have other projects going on. But other than that, I would say most of the time my mornings are spent on like numbers and strategy, you know, right after I have my coffee. It's a little easier to concentrate on. And then later in the days when I usually focus on content creation, and I manage the blog for Windsor, and essentially if it were like a newspaper, I'd be the editor-in-chief, where I kind of assign things out. I do a lot of writing, but I do a lot of editing and then working with the SEO team to optimize the content that we put out so we can get hits on our website and make sales. So other than that, I do a smidge of influencer relations. We have an influencer coordinator, and my boss deals with the like huge influencers that we work with that have millions and millions of followers. But on occasion, like I'll do some runs, like once in the middle of the day, took off to downtown LA to deliver something for a shoot that they were doing with somebody that they forgot at the office, or just little things like that. But yeah, end of story, no day is truly typical or regular.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of what we expect, but good to hear from your end. So Nathan, how is a day-to-day at Live Nation?
So I feel a day-to-day in my position over at Live Nation, I would say it's relatively routinely it's relatively routine. Like we know what to do on a day-to-day basis. The only thing that's different is new types of campaigns that might come up out of nowhere. Like sometimes they sneak up on you. Sometimes there's like a surprise artist announces an on sale, so we gotta get to work on building the on sale email. So that just adds to our regular day to day. But I would say we know what our week looks like ahead, so we can better prepare for it. And the projects, I would say they take the same skill set to accomplish. It's nothing new, like, oh, we're trying something different. I would say just like a different variation of a project we've done before. But I would say everything relatively the same on a day-to-day. We know what to do. We know what to accomplish. We know like this must be done a day. This must be done a day. Everything we can do at the office or we could do at home. We could do it regardless of like what day it is. But a normal day-to-day would definitely be checking emails like everyone mentioned, keeping on track of all the projects you have, lots of meetings, going over things in conference rooms and stuff like that. A lot of editing emails would be on the day-to-day, like QAing our communications, which QA means quality assurance, which just means making sure like everything is spelled correctly, making sure like links are okay, double checking links, making sure it's linking to the right thing before we send it out. Also checking, making sure like if we send out an email, we double check like it's coming out okay on iPhones, it's coming out okay on Android, making sure like no image is like coming out like with the wrong sizes and things like that. So a lot of troubleshooting is definitely on the day-to-day as well. We use HTML and CSS to like build our emails. So every now and then it gets tricky if you're not like too well versed in it. So sometimes that can kind of take a good chunk of our day. Other things include yeah, I would say just building a lot of newsletters and emails and just double checking them, because we'd hate to like send something out to hundreds of thousands of people and then realize we got something wrong, you know, like we got the wrong date on a show. We put the wrong link in or something like that. So definitely part of the day-to-day. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah, definitely lots of projects and campaigns to work on throughout the week.
All right, perfect. Yeah, no, it's really great to hear, you know, varying kind of what to expect at Live Nation, what to expect at Golin. So it is good to kind of hear different perspectives on that. So we'll go more into like our own skill sets. So Autumn, as an account lead, like what are some of the main skills that you utilize in your role?
Gosh, honestly, something that surprised me going into the PR world, I would have to say use a lot more soft skills than hard skills. But time management is a big one. That's both a hard and a soft skill. At least at Golin, we kind of bill like lawyers. So only for actual time worked versus like a blanket bill or estimate to the client. So I have to diligently track throughout the day what I'm doing and for which client, and bill my time to the appropriate billing code. This obviously requires being extremely detail oriented. That took me a while to figure out how I wanted to keep track of it, but I have a system down pat now. Another thing is, honestly, there's a lot of politics. That probably took me the longest to adjust to, coming from food and beverage customer service background. Just in general, the transition from that kind of work to corporate, like even just sitting, 8+ hours a day is a big transition. But there's a lot of politics in jobs that I've worked so far. So just being tactful and kind of abiding by, if you have hesitations about saying something, don't say it. Another thing, occasionally my graphic design and paid media experience helps me out. So I'm really glad I have that in my background. Knowing AP style, like the back of your hand, really, really helps. I committed it to memory like the last semester that I was at Cal State Long Beach. So I rarely have to question my writing mechanics, and same with English in general. I'm a proofreader even when I'm not trying to be. So that's really helped me out. The more hard skills, knowing Microsoft and Google Suites, also like the back of your hand, and how to Google and do advanced searches, because a lot of the entry work I've found has been research based. Just, you never know what it'll be on, but you will have to research a lot. And then some other soft skills, just like you have to have a lot of patience, a lot of confidence in, for public speaking, but also in the work that you produce. And critical thinking, creativity, a desire to learn, an intrinsic motivation to succeed. Like you might not necessarily get praise for anything or everything. So you have to really be intrinsically motivated in the work that you're doing. And finally, most importantly, adaptability, just being adaptable. That's why I always say anyone who comes from a similar background as mine, just working in retail or customer service, is already a leg up, because the nature of that job is being adaptable on the fly constantly. So adaptability is a huge skill that you'll utilize.
Perfect. No, that's good to know, both hard and soft skills, how they are transferable pretty much everywhere. So we have a really good question that I actually wanted to get to really quickly. So as you may see it, so community management. I'll open this up to anyone. Could you just kind of briefly explain what that is?
Sure. So community management is essentially cultivating an online audience for your brands, whether you're in-house or, for your clients' brands that you're working with. And that goes a lot deeper than just responding to somebody who contacts you to complain. That goes into, like, some brands will build forums for their fans. For my job, for example, like if somebody comments on an Instagram post and says, oh, that's a really cute dress, you say something like, oh, and you look really cute in it, just something very fluffy, but you're still establishing a relationship and basically putting more of a personality and a face behind the brand itself. But does anyone have anything else to add to that?
You covered it really well, Melissa. I think I get to do a lot of the more boring parts of community management, which is, well, I have a government client, so there's a lot of red tape there. There's a lot of pre-written responses that I can just slightly change here and there. Any kind of new response has to get run by the client. So our community management for that client is a little bit slower in response because it takes a lot longer to actually respond. So that's DMs, comments, general engagement, like Melissa said.
Perfect. So I want to ask this one to Francisco. So as a media specialist, right? So we all know, like, all the celebrities you named, I'm like, that's kind of crazy. So I know you kind of went into it a little bit, but would you mind just kind of going a little more into, maybe name a few more clients or some campaigns that you really enjoyed working with, certain clients you like working with, anything that you want to spill from that tea?
Yeah, I've worked on I have the good fortune of working on a lot of really exciting campaigns for a variety of my clients. I think for me, my passion really lies in the intersection of kind of like brand like I would say like brand campaigns with celebrity partnerships. So those have been like the most fun for me personally. I would say kind of like, I mean, I mentioned quite a bit of quite a few of like the notable clients that I work with. So Frito-Lay primarily is the big one. So you guys are probably all familiar with Cheetos, Doritos, and all of them. For Cheetos specifically, I would say last year being able to work the House of Flame and Haute in New York for Fashion Week was super exciting for us. It was a fashion show that was curated by different influencers. They each put together kind of like Cheetos inspired looks. Which was super, super fun, followed by a consumer activation that was the Cheetos Salon, and the House of Flame and Haute. So consumers in New York could actually go into this event space and get their hair, nails, and makeup done. And we had like a whole bunch of other Instagrammable things and stuff like that. So, I mean, those are always like super exciting to work on. I mean, I think this year alone, I've worked on 10 different celebrity campaigns. So I've worked with like Steve Aoki, Kelly Rowland, Dylan Francis, all of course, like working on behalf of like brand partnerships for my teams. I mean, some other notable, I think, moments in my career was helping launch the Nintendo Switch. The gaming world is a very interesting and kind of like passionate world, especially when it comes to the world of media. I remember the night that we announced that, there was actually a big press event that took place in New York that live streamed to LA. And I actually was in the Golin office at 11 p.m. at night until like 5 o'clock the next day. So a lot of work went into it. But again, I mean, I think this is why, I mean, I think media is why I love what I do and what I love most about PR, because that's, I would say, what most of our clients want to see. I mean, of course, they all have different programs, whether it's influencer or paid stuff that they want to tackle. But I would say the bulk of my clients that I work with, they just want to see their names in headlines, or they want to see them in stories. So I mean, I like to see, I mean, that's why I love it, because you get to see, I mean, a direct result of those like labors alone. So yeah, any other clients you guys want to know about? I have a plethora of them, so.
Well, no, I will say this. I mean, listen, Kelly Rowland, Nintendo Switch. I mean, first of all, you know.
Oh my God, Kelly Rowland is the sweetest person. I have to tell you that. Yeah. So nice. Absolutely adored her. I will tell you, my other fun stories, I mean, I've had very random encounters with celebrities as well too. Like I was on TMZ once with Nick Cannon at the opening of a Steak and Shake in Santa Monica. Let's see, I was a bodyguard for some celebrity from that movie, Independence Day. The woman, I forgot her name. I was like, I had to touch Ashanti's feet last year at the Cheetos fashion show because she got a pedicure at the salon and couldn't put on her own shoes. So yeah, very interesting jobs. You'll come to find that in PR, it's not really a defined role. You'll have to do very, very sometimes random things for clients, and you're just like, what? Like this is my job right now. Like last week, I had to go grocery shopping for steaks for an event that we were having. So yeah, if you think you're gonna, also again going back to the point of this isn't a 9-to-5 job, if you think this is kind of like a set job description, it's not. There's gonna be something that's gonna come up, and you're gonna be like, what am I doing, and how did I end up in this world today? Like right now, for example, my day, I'm dealing with a very top celebrity. You guys will probably see the campaign in a couple of days, but it's a really, really big celebrity in the music space. And dealing with Panelists is a whole interesting adventure, and that turned my whole day around today. So yeah, a little bit about me.
Perfect. Well, if we, I think when we see it, we'll know, okay, Francisco, he had a part in that one. So perfect.
Oh yeah, right. You'll know, she's everywhere. So.
Awesome. So Nathan, I do want to ask you a question. So kind of like with, you know, you said your kind of day-to-day is a little more structured. So with that said, like knowing what you're going to be doing, are there certain skills that you kind of have, you really try to focus in on? Anything like that?
Can you elaborate on the question really quick?
Yeah, sorry.
No,
no, for sure. So like we just heard with Francisco, I mean, his day changes, you know, so much. And I know you mentioned that yours is kind of like a little more structured. You kind of know what you're doing going into it.
Yeah.
So are there certain like maybe skills that you really try to, you know, focus in on to make your work successful?
Yeah, good question. I would say my position is definitely like more of a back end kind of thing. And for those of you who aren't sure what back end means, it means like working under the hood. Like if you see a nice website, there's web developers on the back end making sure it looks good. People on the front end are designing how pretty it looks. So we're pretty much on the back end of things because we're designing these newsletters. We're putting images where they should be. We're coding the newsletters. We're building the audience, who we send it to. We're segmenting the data we get and stuff like that. So I would say this position really required a lot of hard skills, like technical skills. And I remember like the first day I started, I was like, oh man, I need to like refresh my skills on this because we're gonna be doing this a lot. So might as well like get to know what we're doing. I would say like, as mentioned before, we build our newsletters with like HTML code. So I'm sure, I think probably if you're at CSUOB in the JPR, you might have took the HTML class or design coding class with Gary Metzke. We definitely use HTML and CSS. We don't have to be like professionals. We don't have to be like an advanced web developer or anything, but knowing how to like change a font, you know, how to make something bold, how to italicize something, you know, how to make line breaks and stuff like that. Very basic stuff is always good to know. And that's something like I definitely expanded upon. Like I would always ask my coworkers for help. Like, all right, I need to learn how to do this so like I can do it on my own. You know, I can grow myself professionally with new skill set. Excel, Microsoft Excel is still used on our day-to-day at Live Nation. I'm sure it's used so much in your guys' positions as well because there's so much data to manage, you know, like impressions, clicks, campaign ROI, you know, how's it performing? How many likes are we getting? Stuff like that. So making spreadsheets is definitely like super important. Making graphs is still super relevant as well. So I would say like I definitely took it upon myself to better learn these skills as well. And actually, since for those of you who don't know, a lot of Live Nation employees got furloughed like back in May, and there was like another round of furloughs like 2 weeks ago. And so with the time off, I actually did take a Microsoft Excel class just to like brush up on my skills, you know, in case we go back or in the event that we do have to like job hunt again, like I have something to show for on my resume. But yeah, like in my position specifically, I'm sure it's different for everybody else. Like hard skills definitely go a long way. HTML, data management, you know, making audiences, lists, and even like data marketing as well. Like knowing what to do with what data. Like if you run a sweepstakes for like a campaign or like sign up to win 2 tickets, you know, and then you have 1,000 people who like signed up. You don't just want to leave it at there. You want to maybe target those 1,000 people for like another campaign, you know, like, hey, you signed up for this campaign. Guess what? The person's having another giveaway. Sign up here, you know? So like, you always want to keep the mindset of like, what else can I do with this data, you know? And so like definitely keeping a good like marketing thinking cap is also like a kind of a soft skill, thinking of creative ideas, you know? Forward thinking is definitely a good idea. I mean, definitely a good skill to have as well. And that's something I learned at Live Nation is like pretty much just keep thinking, like keep innovating, and just really manage your data and skill set really well to help out on your day-to-day.
No, perfect. That's great to hear your perspective on that because, you know, personally, I know it's one of those things. It's like I have it on my little to-do list of, you know, man, I Excel, just like you mentioned. I mean, I want to get a certificate in that, you know, because just having that, it's like, man, okay, so this guy, he knows what he's doing. We might want to look at him. That's great to hear that perspective.
Yeah, if you
want,
want,
hard skills.
I could screen share something really quick.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
Maybe like a minute.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So I know I show this to Christelle, Kim, before. We had actually a COVID-19 campaign where we had to send an email out from all our venues. So we have like the Warner Theater, Oakdale Theater in Connecticut, House of Blues Anaheim. And so when we export that data, I'm sure you're looking at this like, this looks insane, you know, like, but a lot of the stuff you don't even need. And then so once you clean it up, you get the venues you need and the columns you need, get a pivot table, get it all going, and then just copy and paste it, and then make it a table, and you get the super nice spreadsheet, you know? And you don't need like any advanced skills to do this. Like this is honestly just like a bunch of like simple clicks. And if you know like these skills, then you'll definitely like be ahead of the game if like you're applying to jobs and like the interview asks you like if you're good at Excel or anything like that. Because if you could do this, you could definitely do it for like any campaigns you guys run that involves like a lot of data.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you for that.
For sure. So I do want to ask, you know, kind of what you're mentioning with COVID. So I do want to ask this question to Melissa. So with everything going on right now, I know Windsor's really huge, you know, prom season, all that stuff. So how has your experience changed thus far, you know, since we've pretty much been online?
Yeah, so on a personal level, I had done like freelancing and work from home before, so it wasn't a big deal to me. But on like a company scale, there were a lot of layoffs, I would say like on the retail level for part-time employees, and then furloughs, and I was involved in that as well. I just recently got called back to work, but you know, with the way that things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, people get furloughed again, depending on what happens with the pandemic. But yeah, it has been not the most fun experience. People are still definitely shopping and putting their money out there. But in terms of like special occasion prom, this lockdown started, I think, in like mid-March. And that was like the height of when we start to sell prom dresses. So definitely took a hit to that business. But thankfully, we have, you know, other lines, swimwear, you know, casual wear day to day. So that's been able to keep us personally afloat. But definitely, I would say if you worked for like a Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, any business that specializes in like activewear or loungewear, those businesses are thriving right now because that's all people want to wear.
I can't say I'm not one of those people who, you know, I'm kind of brand loyal to Nike. So
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
mean,
to answer Professor Newton's question, actually, yes,
yep.
a lot of online sales too. We do have some stores that are open. I believe the local one, the Cal State Long Beach, that's open is either Lakewood or Cerritos, but yeah, so that's definitely helped.
Perfect. Francisco, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. So Nike shorts on right now. So there we go. So Autumn, I do kind of want to ask you a similar question, and I know you did go into it earlier, but yeah, with everything COVID related, how has that, you know, changed?
Yeah, I've definitely got some pros and cons. I know I might be alone in this, but I actually have way fewer meetings working from home now and a lot more like alone time to just, you know, sit and do the work. So that's a big plus. And of course, more quality time with family is a big one. I live with my boyfriend, so it's really nice that we can work, you know, a few feet away from each other. He's also in market research, so we actually talk shop. And another pro, like I mentioned, I work in health and government accounts a lot. And so my job feels very secure. When all of this started, I wasn't working as much on the brand, you know, the consumer side. So it was actually, yeah, a lot of job security there when this started. I also I'm a writer by nature. Like I said, I mentioned I use OneNote religiously. So being in a virtual world now, it's even easier to do that. For example, One of my current bosses is very old fashioned. So when we were in the office, she wanted me to handwrite everything like on client calls. So there was no click clack or in-person meetings when there was a client there. Now she can't really tell me what to do on that front. So I get to take all my notes on OneNote. Some cons, I definitely do work more overtime now. I take it in stride since I'm still technically spending time with my dogs and my boyfriend. And complex ideas like visuals and brainstorming is definitely harder virtually. And new business is harder virtually because it used to be kind of a routine of, you know, either you fly or drive out to a possible new client for an RFP pitch or something, or vice versa. They come to you, and it's just a nice in-person meet and greet and lunch or dinner or whatever. All the kind of things that have just fallen out of the window right now from COVID. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's Oh, at least you have your boyfriend right there, and you guys have your little. that is a interesting dynamic there. So Francisco, I do want to ask you the same question. How has COVID kind of changed your day to day, just your job in general?
I mean, I would say, similar to Autumn, I'm very fortunate that I work in the CPG space because even though we were in quarantine, people have to eat. And of course, with the rise of quarantine, we actually saw a lot of people kind of like gravitate towards, I wouldn't say like the unhealthy snacks, but like snacks that they wouldn't necessarily normally have eaten had this been like a normal year. So we actually saw a rise in sales as well too across all of the CPG brands that I work with. So similar to her, kind of like a lot of job security there. But COVID definitely kind of like, for the most part, I would say like when it first hit back in March, it really slowed down our work. Essentially all of our in-person events that we had planned for the year were canceled. Clients were like very wary about going out with like media news programs because people are dying. So it was a very slow time for me. I would say like the first month and a half that COVID hit. And then I would say May is when a lot of the brands that I started working with started feeling more comfortable and kind of like organize their thinking and thought about like, okay, what are these like socially distant, like COVID safe programs that we can do? So for example, I kicked off like my first time in May, we did like a virtual salsa dance with Mario Lopez for Cinco de Mayo with Tostitos. And then we actually did the sweetest prom with Sour Patch Kids and Steve Aoki, which was like a virtual prom that we held as well too. So essentially it's a lot of the same events that I would kind of like normally do from like a big brand capacity and event capacity, but now everything is virtual. So all of the normal media tours that I would do with like our celebrity talent in New York are now back to back on kind of like Zoom calls. So we've kind of like shifted to this whole like digital virtual world. We have like events with media that are virtual. For example, Google launch night in next week. That's normally a big in-person event that we have at our campus in the Bay Area, but now it's going to be online, and basically everybody can see it. So while it's like shifted from like that normal kind of like event space, it's still pretty similar in the same capacity, and that like we're still pitching, we're still having programs, just everything has shifted to going virtual. I've done a couple like in-person, not I would say like big in-person things, but for example, with Sour Patch Kids, that's another brand that I work with, we opened up our flagship store in New York City in August. So we didn't have a precedent, of course, because we didn't want people to come to the city and or anybody that was in the city. A lot of journalists also left the city once COVID hit as well too. Because as you come to find out, in New York and LA, nobody is from here. So everybody went back to the Midwest where they're from. And so, yeah, so I mean, we've done some like in-person stuff, but again, everything from like a socially distant, safe capacity. I would say now all of my clients kind of like have this groove of what they're working in. So it's actually been really, really busy, and I'm working over the last 2 months, it's been a ton of work. But all fun stuff. Again, it's a job that kind of like ebbs and flows. Like after next week, it'll slow down tremendously. And hopefully be that way for like the rest of the year until we get to Super Bowl season. So.
No, that's interesting though. I know I'm not the only one. A lot of the stuff that we would have in person, we're seeing it online. It's like, yeah, like prom with Steve Aoki, that's kind of cool. You can't say you've had that in the past.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, like, it's a lot of virtual stuff. And I mean, like, a lot of our brands, of course, like, they also do, I would say, not necessarily COVID related programs, but they'll do programs that, of course, like, affect people in that place. I also work with, like, Jameson and Malibu. So Jameson did this, like, big initiative for, like, bartenders and, like, the bartenders, I think it was, like, a Bartenders Alliance. I forgot the exact name of the organization. So they did this whole thing to, like, help them, like, when, of course, like, bars were shut down for majority across the country. I work, of course, on General Mills. So a lot of my brands do a lot of campaigns for like No Kid Hungry, and they'll donate, for example, Cheerios donated $1 million to No Kid Hungry back in May. And we did this like whole campaign with like Josh Gad for his kind of like YouTube series that he was doing. I forgot what the name of it was, but it's like where he like talked to different celebrities about movies. I don't want to name the other celebrity that I worked with for that program because they're in trouble right now, but yeah, but a lot of like consumer, I mean, like digital activations like that is what we focus on for the foreseeable future. Like even with planning next year, I mean, I don't think we have any in-person events happening. Everything will be kind of like virtual for the foreseeable future. But a lot of my clients have been able to make it work. I mean, the biggest thing for us was always kind of like mailers and scheduling and stuff like that. But again, we find vendors that can do that for us. So people are still able to get our products and try them out. So how's cancel? I see Jennifer has a question. How has cancel culture affected your celebrity brand partnerships? I would say it's a so again, as I mentioned, kind of like my role is to kind of like weigh in on the strategic side. So before we kind of like work with any celebrity, a lot of our clients will ask us, okay, they'll give us a list of celebrities that they essentially want to work with. My job, of course, is to kind of like go through the news, see if there's any scandals that I need to flag with our celebrities, and then share that back with them. So if there's a celebrity that kind of is in that realm of like cancel culture, it's a big red flag for us. And we're like, no, we're not going to work with them. We do have some issues, I would say, like after the fact. As I mentioned, there's a celebrity that I worked with recently that is in a lot of trouble right now. Luckily with us, the program that we did with them launched a month ago, so it's not as, it's kind of tied to our brand, but it's not as close to it anymore. But again, I mean, fortunately for us, like we try to work with partners that essentially have a good reputation, and we do a lot of that research on the back end before we start working with them. There are, of course, scandals that happen after the fact. I'll just name the person that I worked with. I worked with Jerry Harris from Cheer, and I'm sure all of you guys saw that news last week. I also worked with Stassi Schroeder for the California Milk Advisory Board, and this was before she of course, had her issues with all the BLM stuff and her castmates. So yeah, sometimes we have to deal with it after the fact, but fortunately I haven't had to deal with anybody like in real time when it comes to cancel culture.
Nice. Yeah, cancel culture maybe 10 years ago wouldn't have been as big of an issue, where now it's everywhere. So thank you guys so much for giving that. So I do want to open up any questions that anyone has for our panelists. Only thing I'll ask is just direct the questions to them. So just put their name and, you know, if you have a question for them. I do have, however, but while that's going on, I did have a few questions from our Instagram that were sent over to us. So let me pull that one up, and then I'll open this one to anyone here. So what is your favorite and least favorite part of your job? And that can go to anyone.
I can go or start off. I would say for me in particular, I like that I get to be so creative. So working for a big company like Windsor, I'm grateful that I have a large marketing team. Absolutely all of my PR and marketing jobs before this, when I was in social media, I was like the one marketing person. So obviously you have to spend a lot more time, you know, doing strategy and the not so fun stuff in terms of like, you know, everything that goes along with that. In terms of my least favorite part, just to probably echo what people said earlier, just the math and stuff that goes into the finance part of it and the, you know, impressions and all that. It's not necessarily difficult, but, you know, I'm sure a lot of us don't get into liberal arts majors wanting to do any sort of math. So it's a necessary evil, but I don't want to scare anybody. It's not anything that's exceedingly difficult, especially if you take like an Excel course like Nathan. So.
All right, and that is a good question. So, or going to Nathan. So someone did ask, how has your film/digital media background helped you in your job?
Yeah, I saw that question. I was going to type an answer, but my film and digital media background definitely has helped since, in case anyone knows, like I've always loved like making movies and like little music videos with my friends and stuff like that, like growing up and stuff. And it's all like good experience too, because you work in a team as well. You're collaborating with others. You get this final product that you create and design from scratch, and then you send it off to the artist or the client, and they approve it. They could hate it, they could love it, they could ask for edits, and it's the very same thing when you're on the field. You know, you create a campaign, you design a flyer for your Instagram, you design Instagram stories or whatever. You compose pitches and RFPs from scratch, from your head, from your own mind, and then you send it off to your boss for like approval or whatever. And they could love it, they could hate it, they could ask for revision. So like it's kind of the same thing, you know, like you gotta prepare yourself to make this product that is in line with the brand, with the mission statement, with your boss's like goals and stuff like that. So if you're a creative person, like, and like you send stuff off for approval, or like to post on YouTube, or like you send it to someone, you use those same skills and mindset on the job as well. So like you definitely have to be okay with like taking criticism, with constructive criticism as well, and taking that like not too hard, you know. You can't feel like offended or anything like that. You just know you got to go back and like retouch it or whatever, you know. So it's definitely has helped me for sure. And I remember I definitely brought it up, like how has in my interview for Live Nation, they asked me like how has this music video you did like helped you, and like how good are you with like accepting criticism and approving edits, and you know, like you don't want to be the person that's like, what, this project I made is perfect, I can't believe you don't like it. You don't want to like go into, you don't want to be like doing that on the job, you know. You got to like take stuff kindly and work together to create a product or campaign that everyone enjoys and is in line with your current mission and goals.
You know, it's good to know that. I mean, just in general, taking criticism, can't take it too personal, but especially working, for example, for Live Nation, that's definitely good to know. Yeah. So I do want to ask this one to Autumn. So working for Golin specifically, what made you choose going agency rather than in-house?
That is an easy one for me. I'm sure professors and everyone at Long Beach has conveyed that starting agency side is very helpful to get a breadth of knowledge versus a depth of knowledge, which you'll get in-house. I knew that's what I wanted to do regardless though, because I had a lot of different interests. So the idea was daunting to me, picking like just one place to work. So I knew agency side for a lot of reasons would be just very helpful in the long run. For example, my last job for Warner Brothers, I was doing a lot of what Nathan's talking about. Like I understand his language because paid media was a lot of Excel, a lot of numbers, creating audiences in Facebook and programmatic surveys and such. But you know, it all ended up helping me, just like if you've ever changed a major, somehow down the line, whatever you learned in that major will help you in the next one or in the next job, so on and so forth. So I knew I wanted to start agency side just to get a lot of different things under my belt. The variety will help you in the long run, no matter what it is. If you dabble in food and beverage, let's say, agency side, and you realize that's what you're really into and passionate about, then, just asking for more of those opportunities from your managers, or, even changing teams depending on the company structure, like to get more of that kind of work. And then eventually, if you decide you want to go in-house, the kind of companies you want to look for, food and beverage. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, we are starting to run out a little bit out of time. Now, unfortunately, that's one of the things with having things so big, so many people. I'm so glad you guys are here. Unfortunately, we can't get to all the questions. So I just want to leave off with one more question for each of you. So as PR students now, current PR students, we would like to know, what is one thing about PR that you wish you could tell your past self? And maybe one word of advice for all of us, because you all have such unique perspective, different roles, all that good stuff. So again, just one thing you would tell your past self, and then maybe some advice for all of us that we would go. And then we will start with Autumn again.
Oh God, I was just thinking, God, I should go last because I have way more than one thing.
Oh man, didn't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's cool. I'm not joking when I say I have more than one thing. I've been working on a very long-term kind of thought piece, if you will, on just exactly what you guys are asking, which is like, what do you wish you knew before graduating or before entering, the corporate workforce? So I've been working on that for a long time because I'm always adding to it, frankly. So I could get into it. This could be a whole other Zoom. So I'll just go on some of the lighter things. I definitely wish that I knew, like I said, let me back up. I would say you might not, in the beginning, get what you're looking for, basically. I've had certain roles where that was really difficult to swallow, and the work was unforgiving. And then I've had other opportunities where, I might not love the work, but I know in the back of my mind, whatever I'm doing is really good experience. Or it might not be the sexy client, but the actual work that you're doing is going to be super helpful, or vice versa. It might be a super awesome client, but the work you're doing is very tedious or admin heavy. But know that, like, if you just persevere through it, you will see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you will, not to get cheesy, but it's like things happen for a reason. I kind of believe that now because of what I've been preaching all night, which is whatever you're doing, if you think it's unrelated to what you want to be doing, it will somehow help you in the long run. So that's one of the biggest things I'd want to say. Also, just like I said, reiterating, knowing exactly what to say, when to say, who to say it to, in what room, with who else listening, kind of all the staples of PR, which is that whatever you're putting out there matters, and that's physical presence, digital presence, et cetera, et cetera. So, if before you graduate, you can have everything like buttoned up and cleaned up, resume-wise, LinkedIn, website, et cetera. I think I'm preaching Long Beach choir. I think Long Beach did a really good job of preparing me for a lot of the 21st century specific things that you really need, like having a website and, you know, doing blog posts and all that stuff.
Perfect. Glad to hear it. For all of you that don't know, Jennifer Newton, she is our advisor. So kind of a little shout out to her for that. So yes, thank you so much. So Francisco, same question to you. Maybe something you would go back in time and tell your self, and maybe some advice for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest things for me in terms of like going back and telling myself what I would have done differently, or like what I should have known, is when we say this isn't a 9-to-5 job, it really isn't a 9-to-5 job. I'm not joking. So that's, I would say, like the biggest one. But I think when it comes to the work is, for me now, I mean, I've been in this industry now professionally for over 6 years. And I mean, I interned as well too. So for a long time, I think the biggest thing is don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, the job that we do is important because we are disseminating public information. But like, for example, in my world, like I'm pitching people like Cheetos and Pillsbury and celebrities, like shit happens. Don't get wrapped up in it. You know, just learn from your lessons and kind of like move on. That's all I would say. That's what I would tell my younger self, is just pick up the pieces, learn from it, move on, don't make the same mistake again. And then I would say, in terms of advice for all of you, and I think this is something that has gotten me really far in my career, is just saying yes to everything. I mean, very rarely do I turn down any team or client asks, even if that requires me to work a little bit later. People really value that, and they, I mean, remember those kinds of things. For example, one of the other clients I work on is Ulta Beauty, and one of the craziest things I did for them was they sent me to Hawaii for 24 hours. So for a segment that we were shooting. But again, that was an opportunity that I did for them, but then it paid off later because now they want me to do more stuff for them in the long run. So small things like that, even though they might not seem big, saying yes really does go a long way, and your coworkers and everybody else will remember that for the future. So be open to new opportunities, because again, you also don't know where they're going to lead you. When I was at A&P, I was a generalist, and now I'm a media specialist because of my role at Golin. So don't say no. Just do it. Find a way to make it work.
Perfect. Love to hear that. And Melissa, so like you did mention before, started international studies PR. Someone did ask that question. With that transition, so again, I'm sure, so going back, if you could tell yourself anything, what would that be? And then again, same question, what would you give advice to all of us as current PR students?
There's definitely a couple of things. Something I still struggle with, and you guys will as well, for a little while after, is know your worth for sure. So like the best example I can give is while I was furloughed, I definitely looked into other opportunities. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, you know, you try and work with people where you can, but some people were really trying to lowball me about 6 years after graduating. So you really have to be your own advocate. And I really want to stress that to everybody, no matter what you end up doing, even if you end up leaving PR, just because as soon as you start to accept that lower salary, you kind of lower the bar for everybody else. So that's important in general. And one thing that I wish I would have known is that LinkedIn and your resume are obviously great and they're necessary. So for sure, get those together when you can. But there are also other ways to market yourself. Highly recommend that everybody have a website, even if you don't have a ton of work to show. You can at the very least like put up a photo, put up a short little bio and your contact information. That just looks very professional. And also like social media, you know, clean it up for sure, because people are going to be looking even if you don't work in social media like I do. And I definitely recommend, at least if you like your job and, you know, and you're not posting any private confidential information, to post some things from work onto your feed. And that'll definitely bring you some, you know, attention there as well. I've had people reach out on Instagram before, and just in places that you would have never thought, just for simply posting some of my work there. And last thing is probably, be the expert, you know, in certain things. Like for me, I definitely specialize in social media and content creation, but there are things that when you're applying for jobs, if you've dabbled in like search engine optimization or email marketing, that definitely helps when you're looking. So you might be the specialist in this, but as long as you're willing to learn a little more about this other thing and you have some skills there, that's a lot more attractive than somebody that just specializes in one single thing.
Perfect. Love that, especially the social media part. I mean, it's good to know. Good to hear it from your end too. So Nathan, same thing with you. Last but not least, if you could go back, tell yourself anything that you know now, and then same thing, advice that you would give to the rest of us.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely agree with everybody on their advice and what they would have told their younger selves. I think something I would have told my younger self, or like when I was in college and studying at Long Beach from like 2013 to 2017, I would say definitely like make as many like connections as you can. Definitely like get involved on campus and stuff like that. Join new clubs, you know, and if you're interested in like PR and journalism and stuff like that, definitely like see if you can like be on board or something like that, like be on the cabinet for like clubs and things like that. I know like when I was in college, like honestly, I wasn't the best like time management person. There were a lot of like Netflix binge sessions, and when you get older, you realize, dang, like I wish I would have like done something else like more productive and stuff like that. Because I feel like a lot of students, like the work habits these days is like you write one paragraph for your essay, and then you deserve like a 5-hour break. You know, like you gotta change that mindset. You know, definitely got to change that mindset. And any tips I have for any aspiring like PR professionals or music professionals or marketing professionals is definitely don't feel discouraged if like you don't like land that internship or whatever or things like that. And if you're like afraid that you don't have like enough experience or things like that, or like you're wondering like, man, how can I get experience when like I'm not on board or anything like that, or like I'm not on the cabinet or anything like that. Definitely like make your own experience. I know there was a question that asked like how do I get started in social media management, and I answered you make it, like you make your own social media and then just start managing it. Maybe find a local restaurant or something and ask if you could like work for free, and chances are you might have to, but at the end of the day, like you'll get really great experience from that. I remember when I was in college, and I would like I would look up job descriptions of like future jobs I would want to do, and I would read the descriptions and qualifications and I was like, man, this sounds like me, you know, and I kind of like played it to the side, like, I'm ready, like I don't need that internship or whatever like that, just because I thought it seemed easy and stuff like that. But what I would have done would be like copy the job description and requirements, go through the requirements and just study them. If it asks for like Photoshop experience, definitely like start learning Photoshop if it's something you want to do, because chances are like other jobs are going to require it as well. Definitely a lot of jobs like kind of like to hire like the people who like can wear many hats, you know. So definitely like venture out in different fields and stuff like that. But I would say I would also like to add, just don't give up. And I think Professor Newton in the comments, she was saying, just keep learning, you know, sign up for like this online course, you know, at your own time, learn Excel, learn Photoshop, just keep learning, manage your own social media accounts. You know, if you're into photography, make a photography Instagram and post your pics, link it to Facebook. So that way you could tell people like, oh, I know Facebook pages manager, you know, and all this great stuff. And for PR, if you want to get more PR experience, definitely take the classes with Professor Newton. Keep track of all the assignments you work on, because you could definitely use them in the future for sure, because experience is experience, you know, whether it's class or not, it still counts. And the other day, like when I was thinking about like my future skill set, I was like, I do want to get like better at writing. I know like Autumn, you're good with like AP style, and that's something I definitely want to brush on. So like yeah, every now and then, like I make my AP style cheat sheet and just look at it. I keep my Post-it notes on my desk just to like remind myself. And just like make your own press releases, you know, like if the PS5 was announced yesterday, like just make a mock PS5 with the information you can find, so that way like you can find your own writing voice and style, and then you can show that to like other PR professionals when you interview and stuff like that. So I would say just keep creating, keep innovating, keep learning from each other, and you'll definitely land that PR or marketing job when you start applying after college.
Great. No, that's something I know all of us can definitely use. So yeah, I know we'll end it there. That's a great way to end it off. I appreciate everyone for showing up. I appreciate panelists Autumn, Francisco, Melissa, Nathan. You guys were great. We really appreciate you. You guys were our first one, very first SoCal coalition meeting. I want to thank all the other chapters for showing up. So it wasn't just a Long Beach event. We had pretty much all of SoCal here with us today. So again, thank you guys so much for showing up, giving us great advice. And yeah, we really appreciate it. We're looking forward to our next event coming up. So yeah, we have more SoCal Coalition events in the near future. And yeah, thank you guys for everything.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Sure, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
for coming,
thanks so much
everybody.
for putting this on. This is awesome.
Bye, guys.
Appreciate it. Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye.
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 Are we good to go?